This is Beru, and this is part 2 of my healing user interface project, and today I'm going to talk about power auras. Just as a reminder, the purpose of this project isn't necessarily to walk you through setting up all of the add-ons that I use, but rather to give you an introduction to what I use, why I use it, and why I feel it's an important add-on in my UI arsenal. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about power auras. I became a fan of power auras about 2 years ago, and I have used them pretty religiously since. The thing that I really like about power auras is that you can do almost anything with them, and they are wonderful for giving you information such as when you have spells off of cooldown, the time you have on a buff or debuff, if you have a certain buff, if you have a certain debuff. They're really fantastic for that sort of information gathering. So I'm going to go ahead and start with talking about buffs in power auras. One of the things that I like about power auras is that I can let me know when I have gained a certain buff. A good place to see this is during Bale Rock, when you gain the buffs Vital Flame and Vital Sparks. And a lot of people ask me, what is that? How do you tell what that is? Well, it's power auras. So you can use these to let you know when you have a buff. You can let them know how many stacks you have on a buff. You can let it tell you how much time you have left on a buff. As you can see here with my Bale Rock auras, I have one set up that tells me how many Vital Spark stacks I have. I have one that tells me when I have Vital Flame and how much time I have left on Vital Flame. But outside of boss buffs, I also use them to tell me the timing on some of my trinkets. So when I activate Shard of Woe, you'll see here that I've got a little box that tells me here's how much time you have on this haste buff from Shard of Woe. When I activate Jaws of Defeat, I have a little box here that tells me here's how much time you have left on Jaws of Defeat. And it's just really fantastic to have that information, right at your fingertips, right there, in your line of sight as you're raiding, and to be able to use it quite easily. Let's sort of jump now to talk about one of my favorite uses for power auras, and that's debuffs. As a healer, it's very easy to tunnel vision and miss a lot of things going on in the fight, especially debuffs or standing in the bad or anything like that. And one of the great things about power auras is that you can create this gigantic, graphic that takes up a huge chunk of your screen to really bring to your attention, hey dummy, you need to move now, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. And it's really, really fantastic. I'm going to admit that I probably rely a little bit too much on my power aura debuffs for knowing when to move out of the bad and move away from things. And I would probably be just a tiny bit lost if I ever had to play without them. I'm sure I'd manage, but definitely don't think it'd be the same caliber play as I have with these. You can see here, this is from Heroic Staghelm. You can see here when I have my Searing Seeds go off, it gives me this big sort of skull and crossbones that says you have 7 seconds left before you explode. You need to get away from everybody else so that you don't, blow the entire raid up. We did similar things with Heroic Nefarian when you had Searing Cinders. A giant thing popped up. It told you how many seconds you had left so you knew when to get off of the platform. We did it for, Heroic Omnitron when you were fixated by those little slimes so you knew to run away. You can really do a lot of things with debuffs as well in power auras, and I frankly think that in combination with your boss mods, having power auras to supplement that is very, very powerful tool for a raider. We made power auras a requirement for our raid team this expansion, and I can definitively tell you that it has made people more aware of these kinds of things and made a lot of our progression more smooth as a result. So again, I can't recommend it enough for tracking your debuffs. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is using power auras to track cooldowns. It's actually one of the most popular questions that I ever get. What are those, right above your raid frames, that tells you when Nature Swiftness is ready or Wild Growth is ready? And guess what? Those are power auras. I set them up for anything that I want to monitor. Wild Growth, Swiftmen, Nature Swiftness, Gift of Nature, when Power Torrent has procced. You can see them all here. What I like about having those sort of in my visual is that I don't have to worry about, looking down at my action bars pretty much ever. I don't need to know what's going on down there because Power Auras is going to pop up and tell me this is ready to use. I can look at it at a quick glance and know if it's available and then make use of it. The other thing that I really like about it is you'll see when my innervate pops up, for example, it is huge and massive and right up in my face. That's largely because I was not getting innervate done on cooldown and I needed a giant reminder to remind me innervate is ready. You need to make use of it. Let's go. And that works really well. You can do a lot of different things to your own cooldown auras if you'd like, but for me, I like to know, when certain spells that are key to my performance are off cooldown. I like to know when I have Power Torrent proc. I like to know my Harmony uptime, which is the green circle there, and when it drops, it spins. When I'm missing a 3 stack of Life Bloom or Life Bloom on anybody, I have a big pink circle that surrounds my character that also spins to remind me that this is something that I need to, get on ASAP because I'm missing it and it is extremely important that I fix it. So for me, Power Auras on cooldowns and things like that are, they're just key to enhancing my performance and my play by making sure that I am made aware of when certain things are happening or, not happening. And for me, I think it's a very valuable tool to make use of. One last thing I want to make mention of is using audibles for Power Auras. That is, when there's something that's super important that I want to remember, you can easily add a sound to help, bring the aura to your attention, as opposed to just having the graphics show up on your screen, which is fantastic. We all know that when things get really hectic and we really get into something, it's very easy to sort of bypass that's going on and just gloss it over. So I like to add sounds to mine because the audio cue plus the visual cue really brings things to the forefront for me and reminds me or brings my attention to it if I may have missed it otherwise. This is especially fantastic on, when you have debuffs or certain cooldowns that you want to track. Adding audibles into Power Auras are absolutely fantastic. And if you're having trouble, even with a Power Aura, to make sure to use an ability or keep something off of cooldown or, not let your Harmony drop or your Life Bloom drop, consider adding a sound to your Power Aura to bring it more to your attention, because it's even harder to miss if you've got, a big squeaky pig telling you, hey, this is off cooldown, it's time to use it now. And so, again, just between the visual and the audio, I think it's fantastic for, helping add reminders to what you need to do, especially in very tense circumstances where you've got a lot going on and it's very easy to forget certain things in your own play. So now quickly I'm going to try to talk you through setting up your own Power Aura, just some very basic things, nothing very fancy. It's quite simple to do, and so I thought I'd try to walk you through that and handling how to get your own auras created. The first thing you want to start with is opening Power Auras by typing /power into your chat box to get the user interface up for Power Auras. Now you've got two choices upon opening the aura, whether or not you want to use your own texture, which is, can make it look like the Nature Swiftness icon or the Wild Growth icon, or whether you want to use one of the default Power Aura textures. It's really personal preference, whatever you choose to do. For my spells and cooldowns, I tend to use the sort of Blizzard graphic for it, but for buffs and debuffs, I frequently will use one of the default Power Auras to let me know what's going on with those. If you want to use the default auras, you're just going to use this texture bar here and slide it till you find a texture that you like, and then you can position it wherever you want using the position X and position Y bars. If you want to use your own texture, just unclick the glow button there at the top and then click on use your own texture, and then that will read from sort of the game files to pick up the texture that you want to use, as long as it's something that's available on that character. Otherwise, you just get a big question mark on there. Once you've picked the texture that you want to use, the next thing is to tell Power Auras what you want it to do. So depending on what you want to track, whether it's a buff, a debuff, your spell cooldown, a weapon enchant, that sort of thing, you're going to take this activation buy box with the drop down and click on it, and then select how you want to activate this power aura. So for the purpose of this, let's set up a buff. So we are going to just select here buff for power aura. And then the next step that we have to do is identify that buff and what we want to use. So for this, you just have to type in the name of what the buff is that you are looking for. Let's say we're setting up harmony. So under there, you're going to type out harmony in the box with the question marks to tell it that you want it to look for harmony to activate. And once you've typed that in, just hit enter and we'll move on from there. Now, if you're using your own aura, go ahead and close out of power auras and then open it back up so that the game recognizes that aura. When you close out of power auras, cast whatever spell it is that you need to activate that buff, and then power auras will recognize it. Then open up power auras again by typing /power. And then once you've got the buff set up, or the debuff or whatnot, you have a couple of options. You can move it around wherever you want on the screen. You can make it more transparent or more opaque using the opacity slider based on your personal preference. You can change the colors by using the random color button. Just adjust it however you want it, and that's all there is to it. You're good to go. One thing to note here is that at the very bottom of the screen, there's spec 1, spec 2, and any. I always keep the any box checked. If I don't, I tend to have problems with some of my auras. However, I do specify spec 1 or spec 2 if I have, a resto or a moonkin specific aura. Resto spec 1, moonkin is spec 2, and just uncheck whatever spec that you don't, particularly want to use. If you only want to see the aura when you're in combat or in a party or in a raid, then all you need to do is select, that box or whatnot, and it will activate only if you're in one of those settings. Additionally, if you have something that you want to check that's cast just by you, such as if you're keeping up Moonfire or Fairy Fire or something like that, select the Cast by Me box there, and it will only track your aura with regards to that. If you want it to tell you if you're missing something, not if you have a buff, but if you're missing a buff, if you select the invert box, it flips around the logic in the power aura so that it'll tell you only if you are missing the buff as opposed to if you have the buff. I do that for my life bloom, the big pink spinny circle. If I'm missing life bloom, I put the used buff, typed in life bloom, and then I inverted that aura so it only tells me if nobody in the raid has life bloom. Additionally, you can, if you're doing something life bloom and you want to know if somebody in the raid is missing it, be sure to come down here and click the raid party yourself button. That tells you that it's going to check everybody in the raid party or yourself to see if there is your life bloom. Again, if you run with multiple druids, make sure you click the Cast by Me button there. It'll tell you if there's your life bloom on anybody that's in the raid, your party, or yourself, and it will check all of those members for life bloom and let you know if you're missing it. If you want to add animation or sound to your power aura, you just select the animation and sound buttons, play around until you find something that you like, and just select the boxes there. And if you want to add any sort of timer, again, you've got stacks and timers. Those are pretty self-explanatory. One will add stacks to it, one will add timers to it, and tell you the information you need. I know it's kind of quick and dirty, but like I said, power auras, once you get a feel for it, really is pretty easy to set up for yourself and do what you'd like to do with it. If you want to import a power aura, you just go over, again, open up power auras by typing in /power, and then once it comes up, you're just going to click the import button. You're going to see a box come up that gives you the opportunity to paste in a power aura string that you may get from another source, such as a blog or a website or Power Auras wiki. You use Control V to paste it in, hit accept, and the power aura should be set up and good to go. And then you can make any sort of adjustments to it that you may want to make. That's even easier than creating your own auras. Again, overall, I find power auras to be extremely useful, extremely helpful as tools go. I strongly encourage everyone to play around with them. Be patient as you work with them. They can be a little frustrating from time to time, so don't lose patience. The more you explore with it and the more you try to do with it, the better you're going to get at learning to use the aura. Please don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions at all regarding power auras, and thank you for watching this guide. I hope you found it helpful.